and welcome to Cooking Unlocked. I am Elizabeth Locke and today we're going to make jalapeno plum jam. I can tell you, jamming is not something that I've done for very long. Really, it's only been 16 years. I was taught how to make jam by my very best friend Shannon, and I discovered that it was something that made me happy. And on the most stressful of days, if I made jam, everything was right in the world. Well, funny enough, I got so good at making jam that I've gotten Best in Show and blue ribbons year after year at fair. And my jalapeno plum jam tends to be my award-winning jam, so I wanted to teach you how to make it. So this is what our ingredients look like. We have 3 pounds of plums. I have pitted them, but only quartered the plum. I've not pulled the skins off because I really like that beautiful color within my jam. You have 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar, 4 jalapeños, doesn't matter the color, that are very well diced. Tri-colored peppers, also well diced. And why do we do regular peppers? Yellow, orange, greens, reds. Just make sure you have 3 colors of them. Along with the jalapeños, it adds beautiful color to the jam. 6 cups of white sugar. A small amount of olive oil when we saute. And my favorite form of pectin is Sure Jell. I have never been let down by this pectin. I have tried others and this one never fails me. Now I will let you know that I have pre-sanitized my jars. I find the easiest way to do it is in the dishwasher. I don't want to waste my time with a bain-marie, a double water bath, any of that. I stick my jars directly from the box into the dishwasher and onto a towel to dry until it is time to cook. So we're going to start by sauteing our peppers. All right, we are going to put just a skosh, that is an official term, of olive oil, just so we can saute our peppers. I will warn you, when you are cooking jalapeños or any kind of pepper in your house, your eyes are gonna run, your children may run. So we're gonna saute these down just until they're al dente. We wanna release all those beautiful flavors in those oils. And then, once that happens, we're gonna add the apple cider vinegar. That's going to help balance the acidity before we add the fruit in. It really does make a difference. Please don't omit the vinegar because you think that that's not a good idea. I promise you, it's delicious. So how do you know when your peppers are ready? When you're doing that, when you're coughing. As the jalapeños are emitting really their gaseous, noxious gas, or the napalm as my children like to call it, that's when it's time to add the acid. Apple cider vinegar is in, and we are going to cook that apple cider vinegar all the way down until it's completely gone. So you can see that liquid is still in there. We're going to cook that all the way out before we add our fruit. Doesn't take long at all. It was such a small, just 1/4 cup of that apple cider vinegar. It doesn't take long to absorb into our vegetables. But it is astounding. So difficult to breathe as those jalapeños are cooking. As soon as you add that apple cider vinegar, you can breathe again. It doesn't have that napalm-like feel. Super important to note, when you make jam is something that you need to devote all of your attention to. Jam is not a multitasking cooking item because once we add the sugar into the pot, that sugar reaches such a high temperature it can give you 3rd-degree burns. So this is something that helps you just really focus on being. It makes you happy, you have music going. Just focus on your jam and nothing else, or you will get severely burnt. Or you can get severely burnt. So we're just about there. Just about all of our apple cider vinegar has been absorbed into our tri-colored peppers and our jalapenos. Right. So as you can see, all that liquid is gone. It's just really peppers at that point. So I'm going to add in my plums. Skins on, no pits. And I'm going to add in my sugar. Stir until your sugar has dissolved. Now, as you can see, I am using a wooden spoon. I never use metal in jam. Quite frankly, I never use metal, period. I'm a wooden spoon girl. But especially in your jam. I don't like foamy jam. I like my jams to be clear and have that beautiful consistency of a jewel. The colors are so beautiful. I find that when you use metal, when making jam, it changes the color. You get a chemical interaction. So instead, I use wood. I have spoons that are specifically for jam and for nothing else. And you'll see that when I'm done cooking this jam, it's hard to miss the jam spoon because it will become purple. So as you can see, my sugar is starting to turn into a liquid. So as you can see, the sugar has now completely dissolved. It was about 8 minutes, constantly stirring. And at this point, I want to add my lemons. So I've got 1 lemon cut in half. I just squeeze directly into my hand. So that if I have any seeds, I'm going to catch it directly in my hand. So nobody wants seeds in their jam. If you have one of those fancy little lemon things, great. If you don't, we have hands. As you can see, look at all those seeds in my hand. None of it are going in my jam. Of course, that method will tell you if you have a cut on your finger. So I'm going to stir that in. You can use lemons, you can use oranges, you can use grapefruits, you can use zests of those fruits. Really up to you of which direction you want to go, depending on which fruit I'm using for jam is the acid that I use. I like lemon with my plum. So I'm going to cook this until it hits a rolling boil, until my fruit starts to soften, and that's going to take about 10 to 15 minutes. All right, our jam has gotten to the point what I like to call mermaid foam. It is not a foamy jam, rather it's this lovely bubbles on top that is reminiscent to what I remember calling mermaid foam. So at this point, I like to adjust my flavor and make sure that I'm good. Remember, this is exceedingly hot. The only liquid that is in this is melted sugar and the fruit that has released from the actual plum. First of all, can you see that beautiful color that's coming from this? Remember, that was just white sugar and plums. Of course, we've got the jalapenos and the sugars and all of that. But this color is coming from the skins, and that's why I never take the skins off of my plums, because I love these beautiful jewel tones. So I want to see where I am on flavor. It's a little sweeter than I like it. So I'm going to add another entire lemon, just to balance that out. Now, a little note about the difference between fresh fruit and frozen fruit. Use what you have. Oftentimes, fresh fruit, certainly, unless you're pulling it off of your own trees, you have no guarantee that it's going to have a lot of flavor. Too often in the last several years, I have bought fresh fruit and it has not had the flavor that I want it to have. But frozen fruit, I'm pretty much guaranteed of the same product every time. I'm going to cook it down. There's no shame in using frozen fruit for jam. Alright, so I've adjusted my flavor just a bit. And I'm going to go ahead and add my pectin and let that continue to cook down. when you add pectin, you never dump it directly in. You want to bring it to the bottom of the bag, pull the top off, and you want to sprinkle it over. Stir in. Sprinkle. Never just dump it in. There is nothing worse than clumps of pectin in your jam. Now some of you may be watching and thinking to yourself, that is not how my mother or my grandmother made jam. I'm sure it's not. This is how I make jam. I don't put butter in my jams because I don't like to have that cloudy consistency. I like this clear, beautiful jewel tone. And when you make jam, you should make jam the way you like to make it. Taste it as you go. Add different things. I started out with a plum jalapeno, and that's what I'm going to show you as a plum jalapeno. But when I'm making jam myself, if as I'm tasting it, that flavor isn't quite where I want it, I could very possibly grab some other fruits and put it in. And so when I jarred that jam, it would say what it was. So if I added cherries or blueberries or even pineapple to it, I would just change the label of my jam. The flavor is what is so important. If you're making strawberry jam and you don't like how your strawberry jam tastes, add something else and change the name of it. So sometimes the fruit that you buy when it's fresh just really doesn't have the flavor that you're looking for. And as I'm cooking these plums and cooking these plums, and even though I've added that pectin, I'm just not happy with it. And if I'm not happy with my jam, I'm going to change it. So I had some beautiful Morello cherries, and that's what I have now added into this. So now we have a cherry plum jalapeno jam, and that's going to be fantastic because these cherries are flavorful, where those plums they had no real flavor to them, and that happens sometimes. But you know what? I would rather have a jam that I love and am proud of than just attempting to doctor something. I don't like that taste of just sweet. I like the taste of fruit. So now I'm going to have a beautiful, really cherry with a plum color. So it's going to taste more like cherry jalapeno. And again, that's the beauty of jam. You just keep adjusting as you go. Jam is something that I give to people. It's a way of expressing love for me because it really is the thing that I love the most to do. Besides being with my children, of course, but I love to make jam. So we're gonna cook this down, and I will have to add another packet of pectin because now I've increased the number of fruit in there. So that sugar to fruit to pectin ratio is now increased. So I'm gonna bring it back up to a roll. I'm gonna get that nice mermaid foam on it, and then I'm gonna add another packet of pectin. So the cherries are now in a tender state, and we are going to, yet again, add some pectin. So same as last time, you want to make sure that you've got your pectin going in where you have sprinkled it across the top. And then stirred it in nice. And we're going to cook that down. We are almost at the point where we can jar it, but not quite yet because we need that pectin to cook down, and we need our jam to start thickening up. Did you know pectin was a natural occurring thing? Pectin comes from apple skins. Apples have pectin. Most fruit has pectin naturally occurring within it. Some fruits just have more pectin than others, so apples, as you know, like applesauce or apple butters, those things naturally thicken because they have so much pectin in them. Plums and cherries don't have so much natural pectin, so we add that in and help thicken it up. How long have human beings been enjoying jams and marmalades? Well, really since the time of the Egyptians. Then it was brought across during the Crusades over to England, and then finally to America. This is such an old and historical, beautiful, both hobby as well as form of food. I mean, jams and marmalades were only for the very wealthy during the times of England and after the Crusades. I mean, that's what they would have for desserts. It would be a little bowl of marmalade. Funny, isn't it, the things that we take for granted as normal? We see shelves full of jam, and yet there were times when only the wealthy could eat it. So as we're waiting for that pectin to dissolve down and really cook down, again, you know I love that Sure Jell. I think it's a fantastic product. Did you know that it comes with all kinds of recipes? I may not be a recipe girl, but if you have never made jam or jellies, really the instructions are right inside, and you've seen already how easy this is. So, like for the plum jam, all you would have to do is look for plum. It says exactly what you need to do plums. Now I add additional ingredients, but that's up to you. But you can just look directly on the recipe. Anybody can make jam and jellies. I make jam, and what's the difference? Jelly is the juice. Jam is all those beautiful pieces of fruit. I never take my skins off because I want those colors. Jelly, you can even make jelly out of wine. You can make jelly out of any liquid. Jam, you would need those whole pieces of fruit in there. Oh, we're starting to thicken. It's looking fantastic. Okay, as my jam has been cooking down, I went ahead and set up all my jars, my lids, the seals, so that I could be ready. Jam has to go directly into the jar in this boiling state. I use a natural way of vacuum sealing. I do not use wax ever. So I'm putting this very hot liquid into my jars, and it's going to naturally vacuum seal from the steam. How do I know that my jam is ready to go? Take a cold, room temperature bowl. Roll it around. If I see that as it's cooling, it's already starting to thicken, as I'm rolling it around, if you can see that it's already starting to thicken, it is ready to go into a jar, because that means even hot, we're starting to thicken. Now, I like to use this fantastic collar. So I use the collar directly on the jam jar. I also have a jam ladle. You can use any ladle, but I prefer this kind. So I am taking that very hot liquid directly out, and I'm putting it into my jam jar. The collar keeps me from burning myself. It also has this fantastic little, what do you call that? Hook. It has this fantastic hook that holds it onto the pot. You need to put that seal directly onto that. Set it aside. You're going to put the collar on in a moment, because you need to keep moving so that your jam doesn't burn, because you're not stirring anymore. You're actually filling your jam jars. Now, as you can see, as I'm filling these jam jars, you have still whole pieces of fruit going in there. I love that when I am making any kind of product, be it that I'm making a cream cheese bagel and putting this fantastic jam on it, or if I'm making a brie en croûte, which is where you take the brie and wrap it in a puff pastry and put this beautiful jam directly on that and bake it together. Those whole pieces of fruit make such a difference. All right, I'm gonna quickly, I've got 4 done. I'm gonna put the collars on. Very damp, not wet, damp towel, super important. These are very hot jars. You with your own hand cannot tighten down that jar. Upside down. They have to stay upside down for 10 minutes. Again, remember what I talked about, how super important it is that you pay attention to your jam and not multitask. This is not a time that you take a phone call. This is not a time that you are trying to answer emails or do extra housework. You are simply jarring your jam. Your safety is the most important thing. This is melted sugar. It will give you a 3rd-degree burn. I always make sure that I've got more jam jars than I need ready to go, so that you don't at the last minute worry, oh my goodness, I'm out of jars. The beauty of these jam scoops is that they really do scoop exactly what you need per jar when you're using the size. So this size jar, which is a 1/2 pint, is perfect for what this scoop is. Why is it important for the towel to be slightly damp? That's how you get a really good twist on it. You can hold on to it. It holds on to the jar. It's safe to go ahead and turn your heat off at this point. I'm almost done, but I'm also at the very bottom of my pot there. Super important. These are going to stay upside down for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, we are going to flip them back over. So, science. This is boiling hot liquid. In 10 minutes, we're going to flip it over, and basically the steam is going to drive down that vacuum seal, so it's a natural way of sealing your jam. This is good in your cupboards for 6 months, or in your refrigerator once open for basically 2 months. Why do I say basically? If you're a person that likes to lick your spoon and put it back in the jam jar, you're not going to be able to last longer. If you're a person like to use your knife onto the butter onto your bagel and then back into the jam jar, you're constantly adding other elements to the jam that won't last as long. But otherwise, it's 2 months open in your refrigerator or 6 months sealed within your pantry. So how do we know that the seal has worked? Once I flip these over, you're gonna start hearing this most amazing ping, 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 and it's basically that vacuum seal part that is drawing down, and you're gonna hear that metal giving off that incredible ping. It's an incredible sound to hear. So we're at 10 minutes now. The jars have been upside down. Now, super important to note, they are still wicked hot. But you can tighten them more as you're flipping over. Like wicked hot. And again, that damp towel really helps you tighten that jar up. I reuse that box that the jam jars come in, because generally when I make jam, I make 100 jars. So I can stack them and store them until it's time for the holidays. So this is what a finished, beautiful set of jam looks like. Look at the color. It really is like a jewel. From our home to you, I hope you enjoy.